Les Brown is recognized today as probably the best motivational speaker in the United States. He was making a talk, I think it was on YouTube recently. He was in a football stadium, there had to be 50,000 people there. And he had his tie off and he was sweating, and the theme of what he was saying was, you gotta be hungry. You gotta be hungry. He said, people are not hungry anymore. And he was doing a chicken step while he said it. People are not hungry, he said, because we're full of so many other things. So we're not hungry for the things we really want. And we can relate this to homeschooling. But what he said was, when he was a younger man, he wanted to be a radio disc jockey. Didn't know how to do it, but he said, I had a burning desire to be a disc jockey. Really wanted it bad. He said, that's all I thought about. So he asked an older relative of his, he said, how do I go about this? I had no idea how to break into it. He said, you go to the radio station that you want to work at every day and tell them you want a job. He said, every day. He said, every day. So he went the first day and he knocked on the door and the station manager met him and he said, I want a job as one of your disc jockeys. He said, oh, I'm sorry, we don't have any openings. He said, okay, thank you. And he left. Came back the next day, he said, I want a job as one of your disc jockeys. And the station manager said, weren't you here yesterday? Did you hear me? I have no openings. He said, well, I thought maybe somebody died or somebody got sick. I really want to be a disc jockey. He had hunger. So he did this every day, every day, every day. After a couple of weeks, he said, I want a job as a disc jockey. And the station manager said, he got frustrated. He said, go get me some coffee. And at that moment, Les Brown said, my toe was in the door. He didn't throw me out that day. He told me, he said, go get me some coffee. So then he started going to the station and hanging around with the disc jockeys while they were working. He would just sit there and talk to them. He got to know them. One Saturday afternoon, the owner of the station called him. It's on a Saturday, so they had a skeleton crew, just a DJ there working. And he told me, he said, Les, that guy that's on the air has been drinking. He said, pretty soon he's not going to be able to finish his show. Can you work those knobs? And Les said, oh yeah, I can work those knobs. He said, now don't say anything on the air. Just do the autopilot thing like some of these stations have. And Les Brown thought to himself, are you crazy? I finally got my break and you think I'm not going to say something? So he got on the air and he had been working on a shtick. He had been working on a rap. His name, I'm Les Brown, and he said, I was good. He said, I knew I was good. So he did his shtick on that Saturday afternoon. He said, I ended up the top disc jockey in that radio station. I was the most requested and sought after disc jockey at that radio station, but I'd have never got it if I wasn't hungry for it. He said, you got to be hungry. He had that whole stadium cheering. Very, very good speaker. If you want to see anything by him, go on YouTube and put in Les Brown. But I looked up the word charter. I'm going to read the charter today. And I know it's hard to listen to somebody read, and I'm going to try to make it interesting as much as I can. But I looked up the word charter. Has anybody here done that? Does anybody know what a charter is? It's a written contract, like a deed, like a land deed, executed in due form. And I thought executed means you got to do something. There's something to be done. It's not something we read and we get excited about and then shortly after we've lost our enthusiasm and forget about it. It's a contract that we signed when Mr. George took over the school. So what I'm going to do, I don't have a lot of time, I have 20 minutes, 25 minutes, so I'm going to read it and just make a few comments. Bear with me because I know it's hard. I'm not going to read every word. I'm going to read the things that I think we need to hear. And it starts by saying, we are requesting admittance into the re-established St. Francis Christian Academy. This letter is intended to make it clear that our family fully supports the views of the newly formed school. That's fully supports. That means we really support it. We want our family to not only keep the faith, but even more important, to share the faith. For this desire to ever materialize, we know that we will need extra help. And this extra help will be St. Francis Academy. You cut yourself off from this school and there's going to be consequences. We just saw that. I heard a lady say one time that we're all like little coals in the bottom of the barbecue pit. We all need to be surrounded with each other to keep each other warm. It's very important. When Jim Rome said, when you start to think that you don't need the help of other people, you're in serious trouble. You don't realize it, but you're in serious trouble. We need each other. And you know what? I thought that any family in this school that slides on this, and we're all going to slide, we're human beings, but I'm saying intentionally and without care, and we let things go, we are hurting the rest of the school, are we not? Isn't a chain only as strong as the weakest link? Because if I see a family sliding, in my human mind I might say, well, if they're sliding, we can all slide. Don't ever take for granted that this school will be here always. It probably will. I'm not saying it won't, but like Raylan said, Satan is very malicious. He's malicious. He wants to do what he did to our brother this week. That was a victory for him. The following is a list. Father Hardin once said, only the heroic families will survive. We want to be one of those heroic families. Is that still true? Do we want to be heroic? The following is a list of values that we hold and understand as values that are to be upheld by your new school. Thomas Drake said at the closing ceremony of the TFP camp that mediocre people, mediocre souls will not change this society. It has to be excellence. It has to be, like Raylan said, we have to be very vigilant. We have to watch what's going on. Number one, we believe that masculinity and femininity are gifts from God. It is our belief that the blurring of the roles of men and women is detrimental to the family as well as to society as a whole. There was a prophet in the 5th century that said the day is coming where it will be hard to tell a woman from a man. Sydney gave me that about 10 years ago. The day is coming when you will be able to look. I saw a tennis match recently, and Sharon and I could, and one of them was a woman, we could not tell if the other player was a woman. We kept looking at each other and saying, is that a woman? She had a hat on backwards, she had sunglasses on, walked like a man, acted like a man. This was yesterday, yes. Very masculine girl. We believe that boys should be encouraged to be masculine and girls encouraged to be feminine. This should be done both in words and actions. We expect our young men to dress as traditional young men, which excludes them from wearing earrings, necklaces, as well as other traditional feminine wear. We as informed parents know that these items are not prohibited by our Holy Roman Catholic Church. That means there are no doctrines being broken if our sons put on a dress or earrings or feminine wear. Our whole purpose for these actions is to accentuate the masculinity in our boys and femininity in our girls. And I'm going to jump to the next paragraph. We are in agreement with St. Francis that neatness and cleanliness are very important elements in the development of a strong Catholic family. What effect does it have on us when the house is a mess? What effect does it have when we pull up in the driveway and there's junk everywhere? If we think that it doesn't affect us, we're dead wrong. It's a psychological thing. It depresses you. I read after I made the Cursillo, one of the signs of holiness is neatness, because a neat person cares. A person who's not holy doesn't care. So if we don't care about a mess, we need to look at that. It is evident that even in the public school system where cleanliness and neatness fell by the wayside, so did order and academic achievement. I have a friend, the man that cuts my hair, his son was teaching in Alexandria. And he said each year the kids got so bad and so violent. Violent. Can you imagine? You teach in school and you're teaching violent people that might hit you one day or attack you, that he had to quit. He said, I couldn't take it anymore. He's cutting hair with his dad now. That's what's going on in the public schools. We will try to always clean the house and have the kids neatly and modestly dressed before starting formal education for the day. What I try to do is we start the day with the kids get up, they have to clean their room, they have to have a smile on their face. Doesn't always happen, but that's what I stress to them. We sit down, we do family prayer. Sharon has a saint of the day for one of these homeschool books. We read the saint of the day, and I try to stay there for that. I want to be there for the day, and I'll try to stay as long as before as long as I know they're on track and they're getting going, and then I'll go off to work. But I think it's very important for us men to be there. Sets the tone for the day. Sharon tells me the kids are different when I'm home, and I'm sure most of the dads can say that. Not that I'm a big tough guy, but they're just different. They know when Dad leaves, things are a little bit more relaxed. By modest dress for girls, we mean dresses or skirts are to reach slightly below the knees with sleeves at least halfway between the shoulder and the elbow. Shorts will not be a part of our young ladies' apparel. By neatness, we mean clothes that fit properly and look nice. I remember Christian impressed that upon me. He said, you know, Dale, when I'm out in public with my family, I want us to look good. Because we're an advertisement for the school, for the Catholic faith. And I've seen people that it makes me wonder sometimes. And I've debated long and hard whether to bring this up, but I guess I will because I think it shocked me. My sister went to the movies one night, I think within the last few months. She didn't realize what the movie was going to be. And she said 5 or 6 of the kids in your homeschool, Dale, came into that movie. And they sat a few rows in front of her. And she said within the first 5 minutes of this movie, there was language she couldn't believe. And we've got a lot of kids here, so use your imagination, other things. My sister got up and left. And she said, those kids in your school did not leave, Dale. So I said, well, the parents either didn't know what they were going to see, didn't care what they were going to see, didn't check beforehand what they were going to see. And I remember talking about it with Raylan, and I said, you know, we've got to be very careful and vigilant. Like Raylan said, the world is going to really pull on our kids. I was telling Shane and Daniel the other day that the test in my mind is going to come when my kids get out in the world, when they're 17 and 18, our boys, let's say, and they're working, and they meet a young lady. Is the young lady going to be brought into our lifestyle, or is my son going to be led out of his Catholic faith? You ever think about that? In other words, are we going to lose our kids because they're not grounded in their faith and the philosophy that we live by? Because I notice some of the families here, when their kids meet somebody, that person, and they are brought into the St. Francis philosophy. It's very impressive when you think about it. But if we're not doing what we're supposed to be doing, that, like Raylan said, they'll leave without a lot of resistance. They'll bolt and jump fences. The boys will probably wear a traditional boy's haircut, that being hair trimmed around the ears and no ducktails. I grew up in the 70s, y'all, and I see that hairstyle coming back. Have y'all seen it? See these young boys with their hair is very thick and wavy and they're just letting it go? I've seen it. I've seen it in some of the kids in our school, and I told Sharon, I said, that's one thing I'm a stickler about, the way my kids dress, the way they look. I'm always on, and Dale knows better. But it surprises me when I'm at Walmart saying I see one of the kids in our school, and they look like I did in the 70s. It's kind of upsetting. Number 2, promoting the veil is another reason we are eager to join your school. I asked my mother, my aunt, and somebody else in our family, all in their 80s, why did y'all stop wearing the veil? Well, everybody else did. They could not tell me why they stopped wearing the veil. That tells you something demonic was going on. They just had no earthly reason why they did it. Most people are like lemmings. They're like schools of fish. They just follow the current. So that's what they did back in the 70s. I remember being a young man and going to confession on a regular basis, the whole family, on a Saturday afternoon, terrified out of my mind to go to confession. But we were there. These same people don't wear a veil, they don't go to confession, and I talk to them, and they look at me like I'm crazy. Confession? I don't have any sins, Dale. I said, Dad, you're a lawyer. I said, you commit 7 sins before you leave the house. Because my dad will not go to confession. He'll go once a year.